5-part romantic story outline, When Stars Weep for Love, Part 1. The execution's witness, 1,000 words character, Damon Blackthorne, a young noble's son, who witnesses his mother's public execution setting, Royal Palace Courtyard of Planet. Xerion Prime plot, Damon watches helplessly as his mother, accused of treason against the Galactic Empire, is executed before thousands. Her final words to him spark a transformation. Part 2. The Healer's Touch, 1,000 words character, Celeste Morningstar, a gifted healer, who finds Damon broken and bleeding setting. Underground sanctuary beneath the capital city plot, Celeste discovers Damon's unconscious body and nurses him back to health, unaware of his identity or the darkness growing within him. Part 3. The Prince's Awakening, 1,000 words character, Prince Orion Vale, the Empire's heir who becomes suspicious of the growing rebellion setting, Imperial War Room, and Rebel Hideouts plot, as Damon's powers manifest and the rebellion grows. Prince Orion begins investigating, drawn into a web of conspiracy and forbidden attraction. Part 4. The General's Dilemma, 1,000 words character, General Thalia Stormwind, the Empire's most feared military leader setting, battlefield and Imperial chambers. Plot: General Thalia discovers her own daughter is part of the rebellion and must choose between duty and love as cosmic forces begin to stir. Part 5. The God's Fear, 1,000 words character, Seraphina Void, an ancient cosmic entity awakened by the growing power setting, the nexus between mortal realm and cosmic plane plot. As Damon's revenge reaches its climax, cosmic beings themselves begin to fear what his love and pain have unleashed upon the universe. Part 1. The execution's witness, the morning sun cast long shadows across the marble courtyard of Xerion Prime's royal palace, its golden rays doing little to warm the chill that had settled over the gathered crowd. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had come to witness what the Imperial Broadcast Network called justice for the realm, the public execution of Lady Isabella Blackthorne, accused of high treason against the Galactic Empire. Damon Blackthorne stood chained among the prisoners' families, his 19-year-old frame trembling not from cold, but from a rage so pure it seemed to burn the very air around him. His dark hair fell across eyes that held storms, and his hands, bound in energy shackles, clenched and unclenched as he stared at the execution platform where his mother knelt. Lady Isabella remained dignified even in her final moments. Her silver hair, once styled in the elaborate braids of nobility, now hung loose around her shoulders. The simple white execution gown they dressed her in made her appear ethereal, almost angelic against the stark black of the platform. When her eyes found Damon's across the crowd, she smiled not with sadness, but with a fierce pride that made his heart shatter and rebuild itself simultaneously. Citizens of the Empire, Chancellor Vex announced, his mechanical voice amplified across the courtyard and broadcast to billions of worlds. Today we witness the fate of those who would challenge the natural order. Lady Isabella Blackthorne, found guilty of sedition, conspiracy, and harboring enemies of the state, has been sentenced to death by stellar incineration. The crowd's murmur rose and fell like ocean waves. Some called for blood, others wept openly. Damon heard none of it. His world had narrowed to the woman on the platform and the words she began to speak, her voice somehow carrying clearly to him despite the distance and chaos. "My beloved son," Isabella called out, her voice strong and unwavering. "Remember what I taught you about the stars. They burn brightest before they die, and their death gives birth to new worlds." Her eyes locked with his, and in them he saw not fear, but a terrible, beautiful certainty. Love is the only force in this universe stronger than death. Let it transform you, not destroy you. The stellar incinerator hummed to life, its crystalline core beginning to glow with the contained fire of a star. The weapon had been designed by the Empire's most brilliant minds. Specifically for public executions, it would consume its victim in pure starlight, leaving nothing but energy that would dissipate into the cosmos. "Any last words, traitor?" Chancellor Vex asked, though his tone suggested he cared little for her answer. Isabella stood, her chains clanking musically in the sudden silence. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to give. "I die for love," she declared, her eyes never leaving Damon's face. "Love of freedom, love of truth, love of my son who will carry our legacy forward. And to those who think they've won today, you have merely planted a seed in soil watered by injustice. What grows from my death will make even gods tremble." The incinerator fired. The beam of concentrated starlight struck Isabella with a brilliance that momentarily blinded the entire courtyard. When the light faded, she was gone, not even ash remained. The energy of her being had been scattered to the cosmic winds, as was the Empire's way with its most dangerous enemies. But something else had happened in that moment of blinding light, something the Empire's sensors couldn't detect and their scientists couldn't measure. As the stellar fire consumed his mother, Damon felt something awaken within him, a connection to the very forces that held the universe together. The energy shackles that bound him began to crack. "No." The word tore from his throat with such force that several guards stumbled backward. The cracks in his restraints spread like lightning, and when they finally shattered, the released energy didn't dissipate, it flowed into him. The crowd screamed as darkness began to emanate from Damon's body, not the absence of light, but something far more primal. The marble beneath his feet cracked, spreading outward in geometric patterns that seemed to follow laws of physics unknown to imperial science. "Seize him," Chancellor Vex commanded, but the guards who approached found themselves unable to move, held fast by invisible forces that responded to Damon's grief and rage. "You wanted to see justice?" Damon's voice carried unnaturally, reaching every corner of the vast courtyard. "You wanted to see what happens to those who challenge your order." His eyes, once brown like earth, now held flecks of silver that moved like liquid starlight. "Then bear witness." The air around him began to shimmer, and WARP, palace walls that had stood for millennia groaned under the pressure of energies that belonged to the space between stars. In the crowd, sensitive individuals began to weep without knowing why, feeling the cosmic significance of what was unfolding before them. "I am Damon Blackthorn," he declared, rising slowly into the air as gravity itself bent to his will. "Son of Isabella the Truth Seeker, heir to nothing but love and loss. And I swear by the burning heart of every star in this galaxy, what you have taken from me, I will take from you tenfold." The palace guards fired their weapons, but the energy beams curved around him like water around a stone. With a gesture almost gentle in its simplicity, Damon sent them flying backward, their armor crumpling like paper, but their lives mysteriously spared. "Remember this moment," he said, his feet touching the cracked marble once more. The cosmic energies that had surrounded him faded, but didn't disappear. They settled into his very bones, his blood, his soul. "Remember that your empire created its own destruction the moment it chose cruelty over compassion." With that, he turned and walked through the stunned crowd, which parted before him like a sea of silence. Behind him, the execution platform crumbled to dust, and the stellar incinerator that had taken his mother's life sparked once before going permanently dark. None dared to follow the young man who disappeared into the labyrinthine streets of the capital city, carrying within him the seed of something that would indeed make gods afraid. Part 2. The Healer's Touch. The underground sanctuary beneath Zirion Prime's capital existed in defiance of imperial law, carved from living rock by generations of those who refused to let compassion die in a galaxy ruled by fear. Bioluminescent crystals provided gentle light, their soft blue glow reflecting off walls lined with healing herbs from a dozen worlds. The air hummed with the quiet energy of sanctuary, a place where the wounded could find peace, regardless of their species, status, or sins. Celeste Morningstar moved through the healing chambers like a whisper of hope, her bare feet silent on the smooth stone floors. At 23, she possessed a rare gift that manifested in her unusual appearance, hair that shifted between silver and gold depending on the light, and eyes that held depths of violet that seemed to see beyond the physical realm. Her simple robes, woven from moon silk, flowed around her slender frame as she tended to the sanctuary's patients. She had been born here, beneath the streets, daughter of refugees who had fled imperial persecution. Her mother had died bringing her into the world, and her father had followed when she was 12. leaving her to be raised by the sanctuary's elders. They had recognized her gift early, the ability to heal not just bodies, but souls wounded by the cruelties of the empire above. Celeste called Tobias Ashford, the sanctuary's keeper, his weathered voice echoing off the crystal walls. "We have an emergency. Marcus found someone in the outer tunnels badly hurt." She looked up from the sleeping child she'd been healing, a young Zephyrian whose wings had been broken by Imperial bullies. Her touch had mended the delicate bones, and now the child slept peacefully, wings folded against their back like opalescent silk. "How badly hurt?" she asked, already moving toward the main chamber where emergency cases were brought. "Bad enough that Marcus couldn't move him alone. The boy's burning up with fever, but his skin is ice cold. There's something different about him." Celeste quickened her pace, her healer's instincts already reaching out, trying to sense the injured person's condition. What she felt made her stumble, a darkness so profound. It was like staring into the void between stars, but beneath it, a pain so pure and overwhelming that it brought tears to her eyes. "Where is he?" she whispered, following the pull of suffering that called to every healing instinct she possessed. Marcus Ironhold, a burly Terran who served as the sanctuary's protector, stood beside a stone bed where a young man lay unconscious. Even in sleep, the stranger's face was taut with anguish, and his dark hair was matted with sweat despite the coldness of his skin. "Found him collapsed in the main access tunnel," Marcus explained, his usually steady voice tinged with concern. "Been unconscious for hours. Celeste, I've never felt anything like the energy coming off him. It's like he's burning from the inside out, but with cold fire." Celeste approached slowly, her violet eyes studying the young man's face. He was handsome in a tragic way, with strong features that spoke of noble blood and a scar along his jaw that suggested violence survived. But it was his hands that made her gasp. The fingertips were blackened as if touched by starfire, and faint lines of silver light pulsed beneath his skin like liquid metal in his veins. "Who is he?" she asked, though part of her already suspected she didn't want to know the answer. "That's what worries me," Marcus said grimly. "Look at his clothes." Celeste looked closer and saw the remnants of what had once been fine fabric, the kind worn by imperial nobility, but it was scorched and torn, and where family crests should have been, there were only burn marks in the shape of broken chains. "We should contact the council," Tobias said nervously. "If he's imperial, he's hurt," Celeste interrupted, her voice carrying a firmness that surprised them all. "That's all that matters here." She placed her hands gently on the stranger's forehead, and the moment her skin touched his, the world exploded into sensation. Images flooded her mind, a woman with silver hair speaking words of love and defiance, the terrible brilliance of stellar fire, the sound of chains breaking and marble cracking. She saw his mother's execution through his eyes, felt his rage and grief as if they were her own. But beneath the darkness, she found something else, a capacity for love so vast it was like discovering an ocean in a desert. This young man, whoever he was, had been broken not by hatred, but by the loss of love. His darkness wasn't evil. It was love transformed by trauma into something the universe itself feared to touch. "Damon," she whispered, the name coming to her through their connection. His eyes opened. They were no longer fully human. Flecks of liquid starlight swirled in irises that shifted between brown and silver. When his gaze met hers, Celeste felt as if she were falling into the space between worlds, where the fundamental forces of creation danced their eternal ballet. "Angel," he breathed, his voice rough from fever. "Have I died? Have I found her?" "You're alive," Celeste said softly, not moving her hands from his face despite the cosmic energies that flowed through him, like a river of controlled chaos. "You're safe. My name is Celeste." "Celeste," he repeated, and the way he said her name made it sound like a prayer. "Why aren't you afraid of me? Everyone else, they saw what I became." "Because I can see what you are beneath what you've become," she replied, her healing gift allowing her to perceive the true nature of his transformation. "You're not a monster, Damon Blackthorn. You're a man who loved his mother so much that losing her broke something fundamental in the universe itself." He tried to sit up, but she gently pressed him back down. As her hands remained in contact with his skin, she began to understand the full scope of what had happened to him. The stellar energy that had consumed his mother hadn't just been witnessed. By him it had somehow bonded with his grief, creating something entirely new. He was becoming a bridge between the mortal realm and the cosmic forces that governed reality itself. "I felt her die," he whispered, tears tracking down his cheeks. "I felt her essence scatter to the stars, and something in me followed her. Now, I can hear them, the cosmic winds, the songs of dying suns, the whispers of creation itself. And they're all afraid. Afraid of what? Of what love can become when it has nothing left to lose." Celeste began to channel her healing energy into him, not to change what he was becoming, but to help him control it. Her gift had always been about balance, not eliminating darkness, but helping it coexist with light. "The fever," Tobias observed. With amazement, "it's breaking." Indeed, the terrible coldness was leaving Damon's skin, replaced by normal warmth. The silver lines beneath his skin still pulsed, but they no longer seemed chaotic. Under Celeste's touch, they were finding rhythm, pattern, purpose. "How do you do that?" Damon asked, staring at her with wonder. "How do you touch the darkness without being consumed? Because darkness isn't evil," she explained, her hands now resting over his heart where the cosmic energies seemed to center. "It's just the absence of light, and light doesn't exist without darkness to define it. You're not becoming a destroyer, Damon. You're becoming something the universe has never seen before. Love given cosmic power." "The Empire killed her," he said, his voice growing stronger. "They took the one person who believed in mercy, in justice, in the possibility that this galaxy could be better. They turned her into starlight and thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. No." His eyes met hers, and in them she saw not just grief and rage, but hope, fragile and new, like a flower blooming in burned soil. "It was the beginning. But I don't want to be ruled by vengeance, Celeste. I've seen what that path leads to. I want to be worthy of what she died believing in." Celeste felt her heart skip as she realized the full implications of what was happening. This wasn't just a healing, it was a choosing. Damon Blackthorne stood at a crossroads between becoming the universe's salvation or its doom. And somehow, impossibly, her presence was helping him choose salvation. "Then we'll find another way," she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. "We'll find a way to honor her memory without losing yourself to the darkness. The hope in his voice was heartbreaking. "I'm not leaving you to face this alone," she replied, though she wasn't entirely sure why she felt so certain. Something about him called to her in ways she didn't fully understand. Not just her healer's compassion, but something deeper. Something that felt like destiny. As if responding to her words, the cosmic energies flowing through him shifted, becoming less chaotic and more harmonious. The sanctuary's crystals began to glow brighter, resonating with the new balance being created. Outside, in the depths of space, ancient beings that had slumbered for eons began to stir, sensing the birth of something unprecedented, a mortal touched by cosmic force, but anchored by love instead of hatred. The universe was about to change, and it all began with a healer's touch in a hidden sanctuary beneath an empire that had no idea what it had unleashed. Part 3. The Prince's Awakening. Prince Orion Vale stood before the panoramic viewport of his private chambers, aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Dominion, watching the stars wheel slowly past as the massive ship maintained its orbit around Zirion Prime. At 28, he was everything the Empire expected of its heir, tall, commanding, with the sharp features and golden hair that marked him as true Imperial nobility. But tonight, something gnawed at him with the persistence of a stellar parasite. The execution 3 days ago should have been routine. The Empire executed traitors regularly. It was necessary for maintaining order across a galaxy of rebellious worlds, yet he couldn't shake the image of Lady Isabella Blackthorne's final moments, not her death, which had been clean and efficient, but the impossible display of power from her son that had followed. "Your Highness," came the voice of his aide, Lieutenant Cassius Drake, through the chamber's communication system. "The investigative reports you requested are ready for review." "Bring them in," Orion commanded, turning from the viewport. His reflection in the darkened transparistol showed a man who looked older than his years, burdened by the weight of an empire he would someday inherit, but wasn't sure he wanted. Cassius entered, carrying a datapad filled with information about the Blackthorn incident. The young lieutenant was efficient, loyal, and though Orion would never admit it aloud, possessed of an idealism that the prince found both refreshing and dangerous. "What did you find?" Orion asked, settling into the chair behind his ebony desk. "Very little, sir. It's as if Damon Blackthorn simply vanished after the execution. No sensor readings, no witness accounts beyond the initial incident. The surveillance systems experienced mysterious failures during his departure." Orion frowned. "Mysterious failures? Or deliberate sabotage? Unknown, Your Highness. But there's something else." Cassius hesitated, and Orion gestured for him to continue. "The energy readings from the execution platform. They don't match anything in our databases. Whatever happened to him, it's not just psychic manipulation or enhanced physical abilities. It's something entirely new. Show me the footage again." Cassius activated the holographic display, and once more Orion watched the moment that had been haunting his thoughts: Lady Isabella's dignified death, the brilliant stellar fire, and then chaos. The young man's transformation had been unlike anything in Imperial records. Not the crude power of a typical rebel psychic, but something that seemed to bend reality itself. "Pause it there," Orion commanded as the recording showed Damon's eyes changing, filling with liquid starlight. "Have you seen anything like that before?" "No, sir. But I've been researching ancient texts in the Imperial archives. There are legends, old stories about beings who could touch the cosmic forces directly. They were called starburn." "Legends," Orion said dismissively, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, sir. But the energy signature from the platform, it matches theoretical models for cosmic manipulation that our scientists have only dreamed of achieving." Orion stood and paced to the viewport again. Below, Zirion Prime rotated slowly, its capital city glittering like scattered diamonds against the dark continents. Somewhere down there, a young man carrying impossible power was hiding, and the Empire's most advanced tracking systems couldn't find him. "There's been increased activity in the underground districts," Cassius continued. "Unusual energy readings, reports of miracles in the lower levels, healings that shouldn't be possible, people claiming they've seen angels in the tunnels." "Angels?" Orion's reflection smiled grimly in the viewport. "The rebels are getting creative with their propaganda." "Perhaps, sir. But 3 separate sources mention a woman with silver gold hair and violet eyes. She's apparently been healing people that Imperial medicine has written off as hopeless." Something in Cassius's voice made Orion turn to study his aide's face. The young man's expression was carefully neutral, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of hope that he was trying to hide. "You find these reports credible?" "I find them intriguing, Your Highness. If there truly is someone with healing abilities beyond our technology, it raises questions about what else might be possible." Orion considered this. In his 28 years, he had seen the Empire's power crush rebellion after rebellion, maintain order through fear and force. It was effective, but lately, he'd begun to wonder if it was sustainable. His father, Emperor Maximilian Vale, ruled through strength alone, but strength without wisdom eventually crumbled under its own weight. Arrange a discreet investigation, he decided. "I want to know everything about these underground activities." And Cassius, "Yes, Your Highness, handle this personally. No reports to the Chancellor or the Security Council." Cassius bowed. "As you command." After his aide left, Orion returned to the viewport, but his reflection now showed a man wrestling with questions he'd never allowed himself to ask. What if the Empire was wrong? What if there were powers in the universe that rendered their technological supremacy meaningless? And what if the thought was almost treasonous? What if the rebels had legitimate grievances? 2 days later, Orion found himself in the lower districts of the capital, disguised in the simple robes of a merchant. Cassius accompanied him, equally disguised, as they made their way through the labyrinthine streets where the Empire's authority was more suggestion than law. The reports had led them to a district called Sanctuary Ward, where the underground entrances were hidden among legitimate businesses and residential blocks. The people here moved differently than in the upper levels, with purpose rather than fear, helping rather than competing with each other. "There," Cassius whispered. pointing to a building that looked like an abandoned warehouse, but showed subtle signs of recent activity. Thermal scans show significant foot traffic despite its apparent vacancy. They approached carefully, using techniques learned in their military training to remain unobserved. As they drew closer, Orion began to feel something he'd never experienced before, a sensation like standing near a massive energy source, but one that radiated warmth rather than heat. The entrance they found led to a tunnel carved from living rock, illuminated by crystals that pulsed with soft blue light. The very air seemed to hum with gentle energy, and Orion found his usual tension beginning to ease despite their dangerous situation. "Your Highness," Cassius breathed, pointing ahead. A young woman emerged from a side passage, and Orion's breath caught in his throat. She was exactly as the reports had described, hair that shifted between silver and gold, eyes of deep violet that seemed to hold entire galaxies. But it was more than her unusual beauty that stopped him cold. It was the aura of peace that surrounded her, the sense that here was someone who had never learned to hate. "Celeste," called a voice from behind her, and Orion's heart stopped as he recognized it from the execution footage. Damon Blackthorne stepped into view, but he was transformed. From the broken young man who had fled the palace courtyard, he moved with confidence now, his cosmic energies controlled and purposeful. The silver light that pulsed beneath his skin was gentle rather than chaotic, and when he looked at the young woman, his expression held such tender devotion that Orion felt like an intruder witnessing something sacred. "The new patients are responding well," Celeste reported, and her voice was like music made audible. "The Zephyrian child's wings are completely healed, and the Terran miner's lung scarring is almost gone." "And you're not exhausting yourself?" Damon asked, taking her hands in his. Where their skin touched, both their energies seemed to amplify, creating patterns of light that danced in the air around them. "Not when you're here to balance me," she replied, smiling with such radiance that Orion felt his worldview shifting fundamentally. "We should go," Cassius whispered urgently, but Orion found himself unable to move. He was watching something impossible, a love so pure that it was literally creating new forms of energy, healing powers that surpassed Imperial technology, and, most shocking of all, the Empire's most wanted fugitive using cosmic abilities not for destruction, but for healing. "They're building something down here," he murmured, finally understanding. Not a rebellion based on hatred of the Empire, but an alternative based on compassion. Before Cassius could respond, Damon's head turned sharply in their direction. Those silver-flecked eyes met Orion's across the tunnel, and the prince felt the full weight of cosmic awareness focusing on him. "We have visitors," Damon said calmly, but his body shifted slightly to place himself between Celeste and the potential threat. Celeste's violet eyes followed his gaze, and when she saw the two disguised figures, her expression showed no fear, only curiosity and, impossibly, compassion. "Come forward," she called gently. "If you're here seeking healing, you're welcome. If you're here for other reasons, you're still welcome." Orion found himself stepping into the light before his rational mind could stop him. Cassius followed reluctantly, hand hovering near his concealed weapon. "Prince Orion Vale," Damon said, and there was no surprise in his voice. "I wondered when you would come. You know who I am. I can sense the weight of Empire on your soul." Damon replied, "The question is, are you here as the Empire's heir or as a man seeking answers?" Orion looked between them, the young man who had become something beyond mortal understanding, and the woe. Part 4. The General's Dilemma. General Thalia Stormwind stood on the bridge of the Imperial battle cruiser Iron Justice, her steely gray eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the growing unrest across 17 star systems. At 45, she was the Empire's youngest general, a woman whose reputation for ruthless efficiency had earned her the nickname the Emperor's Blade. Her raven black hair was pulled back in a severe military bun, and her uniform bore the crimson insignia of someone who had never lost a campaign. But today, the most decorated warrior in Imperial history felt the foundations of her certainty cracking like a dam under impossible pressure. "General," called Captain Vera Nightshade from the communications station, her voice tight with concern. "Priority transmission from Imperial Command. They're requesting immediate status on Operation Starfall. Thalia's jaw tightened. Operation Starfall, the systematic elimination of the underground healing networks that had spread like wildfire across the galaxy since the Blackthorn incident. What had started as isolated reports of miraculous healings had become a movement that threatened the very foundations of imperial control. "Put it through to my private chamber," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority that had commanded armies across a dozen worlds. In the privacy of her quarters, Emperor Maximilian Vale's holographic image materialized, his angular features twisted with barely controlled rage. Behind him stood Chancellor Vex, the mechanical components of his face whirring as he processed data streams. "Thalia," the Emperor began without preamble, "your progress reports are unsatisfactory. These healing sanctuaries continue to multiply. Despite our efforts, people are abandoning imperial medical facilities in favor of miracle workers. The targets have proven more elusive than anticipated, Your Majesty," Thalia replied carefully. "They possess early warning systems beyond our current understanding. Every raid finds empty facilities, as if they know we're coming days in advance. Unacceptable." Chancellor Vex interjected, his voice a harmony of organic and artificial tones. "Intelligence suggests these networks are coordinated by the Blackthorn fugitive and an unknown female healer. They must be eliminated." Thalia's heart clenched, though she kept her expression neutral. Unknown female healer. She had suspicions about that identity, suspicions that kept her awake during the ship's artificial nights, staring at the star charts and wondering if the universe was playing the cruelest joke imaginable. "I require additional resources," she said. "Ships, troops, and access to the restricted sensor rays. If we're hunting someone with cosmic abilities, conventional tactics are insufficient." The Emperor leaned forward. "You'll have whatever you need, but understand this, Thalia, failure is not an option. The Empire cannot appear weak in the face of fairy tales about healing angels. Find them, destroy them, make an example that will end this nonsense permanently." The transmission ended, leaving Thalia alone with her thoughts and the weight of an order that might destroy everything she held dear. She moved to her private safe, entering the complex biometric locks that protected its contents. Inside, wrapped in black silk, lay a small holographic projector, one that contained the most precious recording in her possession. Activating it, she watched as the image of a 20-year-old woman materialized before her. The figure had silver gold hair that caught light like spun starshine, violet eyes that held depths of compassion, and a smile that could heal hearts just by existing. "Happy birthday, Mother," the recorded Celeste said, her voice carrying the warmth that had once filled Thalia's life with meaning. "I know you can't be here, but I wanted you to know that everything you taught me about compassion and strength is helping me help others. I love you wherever the Empire has sent you." The recording was 3 years old, the last communication she'd received before Celeste had vanished into the underground networks that Thalia was now being ordered to destroy. 20-3 years ago, Thalia Stormwind had been a different person. Lieutenant Thalia Morningstar, young idealist serving aboard a medical frigate, had fallen in love with a fellow officer named David Celeste. Their daughter had been born between battles, raised in the brief peaceful moments that military life allowed. But when David died in the Battle of Kepler's Gate, Thalia had made a choice that haunted her still. Unable to care for a child while serving on the front lines, she had entrusted Celeste to trusted friends, rebels who promised to keep her safe and raise her with the values of compassion that the Empire was rapidly abandoning. To protect them both, Thalia had changed her name, buried her past, and thrown herself into military service with such ferocity that she'd become the Empire's most feared general. She had become everything she once fought against, all to create a galaxy safe enough for her daughter to exist in. Now, it seemed, the universe was demanding payment for that betrayal of her principles. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Captain Nightshade's voice followed. "General, we're receiving intelligence reports from the Zirian Prime Underground. Someone claiming to have information about the healing networks. Requests immediate audience. Send them to briefing room 7. Thalia commanded, her voice steady despite the storm raging in her heart. "Full security protocols. The man waiting in the briefing room was unremarkable middle-aged, soft around the edges, with the nervous manner of someone unused to military environments. His identification claimed he was Marcus Goldwell, a supplies coordinator for the lower district markets. "General Stormwind," he began, his voice shaking slightly. I have information about the healing sanctuaries, but I need guarantees, protection for my family." "Speak," Thalia commanded, settling into her chair with predatory stillness. "There's a main sanctuary beneath the Mercy District, hidden entrance through the old aqueduct system. He swallowed hard. "They have someone there, someone with abilities beyond anything you've seen. A woman who can heal impossible injuries, bring people back from the edge of death." Thalia's blood turned to ice. "Describe this woman." "Beautiful, like something out of ancient legends. Hair that changes color in the light, eyes like deep space. She calls herself Celeste, and the people down there, they worship her like a goddess." The room seemed to tilt around Thalia as her worst fears crystallized into horrible certainty. Her daughter, her compassionate, idealistic daughter, had become the Empire's most wanted healer. "There's more," Marcus continued, encouraged by her silence. "She's not alone. There's a man with her, young, powerful in ways that make your skin crawl and fill you with awe at the same time. They say he can touch the cosmic forces themselves. Together, they're creating something that's spreading across the galaxy like wildfire." "What kind of something?" Thalia managed to ask. "Hope, General. They're giving people hope that there's something better than the Empire's way. And hope is more dangerous than any weapon." After dismissing the informant with promises of protection and payment, Thalia stood alone in the briefing room, staring at the tactical displays that showed the locations of suspected sanctuary sites. One pulsed red on the holographic map, the main facility beneath Mercy District. Her daughter was there, her brilliant, compassionate daughter who had inherited her father's healing touch and her mother's stubborn idealism. The same daughter who was now the primary target of Imperial extermination protocols. Captain Nightshade entered without announcement. "A privilege earned through years of faithful service, General. The strike teams are ready for your orders." Thalia looked at her trusted aide, a woman who had followed her through 3 galactic campaigns, who had never questioned an order or failed a mission. Vera Nightshade was everything an Imperial officer should be: loyal, efficient, deadly. "Vera," Thalia said quietly, "in all our years together, have you ever wondered if we're fighting for the right cause?" The captain's expression showed genuine surprise. "General, when we pacify a world, when we eliminate rebels, when we maintain order through fear, do you ever wonder if there might be a better way?" Vera considered the question seriously, as she did everything. "I serve the Empire because I believe civilization requires order, but..." She hesitated. "Lately, I've seen the reports from the healed worlds, places where Imperial rule has been replaced by these healing networks. Crime rates down 90%, productivity up, voluntary compliance with reasonable laws. It's confusing." Thalia nodded, making a decision that would define the rest of her life. "What if I told you that the woman we're hunting, the healer they call an angel? What if I told you she was my daughter?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Vera spoke. "I would ask what you need me to do, General." "I need you to help me commit the greatest treason in Imperial history," Thalia said, her voice steady as steel. "I need you to help me save my daughter and, possibly, the galaxy itself." Vera Nightshade straightened to attention, but her expression held something Thalia had never seen before: relief. "Where do we start, General?" Thalia activated the tactical display, highlighting the sanctuary beneath Mercy District. "We start by warning them. Then we disappear, the only way that won't get us both executed by dying gloriously in battle against an enemy that doesn't exist, a false flag operation." "Exactly. We stage our own deaths, fake a catastrophic battle, and join the underground." Part 5. The God's Fear in the Space Between Dimensions, where reality bent like light through a prism and time flowed in spirals rather than lines. Seraphina Void stirred from a slumber that had lasted longer than most civilizations. She was old when the first stars ignited, ancient when galaxies learned to dance, and her consciousness spanned the cosmic web that held existence together like delicate silver threads. But now, Something impossible was happening in the mortal realm, something that made her essence tremble with an emotion she had forgotten how to name: fear. Serafina manifested her awareness in the form mortals could comprehend. Though her true nature was far beyond physical representation, she appeared as a woman of indeterminate age, with skin that held the deep blue-black of space itself, hair that moved like stellar winds, and eyes that contained the birth and death of universes. When she spoke, her voice carried the harmony of cosmic forces in perfect balance. "Sister," she called across the dimensional barriers, summoning others of her kind. "We have a problem." 3 other entities materialized in the space around her, each representing fundamental forces of existence. Kronos, the timekeeper, whose form shifted constantly between past and future. Cosmos, the star mother, whose body was composed of living galaxies. And Entropy, the necessary darkness that allowed change and growth, whose presence was felt more than seen. "The mortal realm churns with new energies," Kronos observed, his voice echoing from multiple temporal positions simultaneously. "I see futures that shouldn't exist, pasts that are being rewritten by present choices. One of the fleshbound has achieved impossible synthesis," Cosmos added, her galaxy hair swirling with new star formations. "Love and cosmic force have merged in ways that violate the fundamental laws we established when existence began." Entropy's presence intensified, carrying the whisper of endings. "He is making us obsolete. The balance we maintain through cosmic law he achieves through connection. The order we impose through power he creates through compassion." Serafina nodded gravely. "Damon Blackthorn, the one whose mother's death created a bridge between mortal emotion and stellar energy. He should have burned out or been consumed by the forces touching him. Instead he found an anchor," Kronos interrupted, his form flickering through timeline after timeline. "The healer woman. Her gift creates perfect balance where there should be cosmic chaos." "Show us," Cosmos commanded, and reality around them shifted to display the events unfolding in the mortal realm, far below. In the underground sanctuary beneath Zirion Prime, the confrontation that would reshape existence was beginning. Damon stood in the center of the main healing chamber, cosmic energies flowing around him like visible music. Celeste knelt beside a dying child, a young Arcturian whose parents had brought her light years, seeking the miracle they'd heard whispered across the galaxy. The child's condition was beyond even Celeste's considerable abilities, her life force too damaged by Imperial weapons to restore conventionally. "I can save her," Damon said quietly, his silver-flecked eyes meeting Celeste's violet gaze. "But it will require more power than I've ever channeled before. The risk," Celeste began, "is acceptable." His voice carried absolute certainty. "No child dies while I have the power to prevent it." Round them, the sanctuary had become a gathering point for representatives from across the galaxy. Prince Orion stood beside Marcus and Tobias, his imperial uniform replaced by the simple robes of a healer in training. Captain Cassius worked alongside former imperial soldiers who had chosen compassion over conquest. And approaching through the main tunnel, General Thalia Stormwind and Captain Vera Nightshade led a group of refugees from the upper levels, people fleeing imperial reprisals who had heard rumors of sanctuary. But behind them, undetected by conventional sensors, came death in the form of Chancellor Vex and his personal strike force, equipped with weapons designed to disrupt cosmic energies and kill even enhanced beings. Damon began to channel power unlike anything the universe had seen before. The energy didn't come from destruction or domination, but from the connections between all living things, the same force that held atoms together, that made stars shine, that allowed love to exist across impossible distances. As his abilities reached their crescendo, healing the dying child and sending waves of regenerative energy throughout the sanctuary, the cosmic entities watching from beyond reality felt something unprecedented, their own power beginning to diminish. "Impossible," Serafina whispered, her form flickering with uncertainty. "He's not drawing power from the cosmic forces," Entropy realized with growing alarm. "He's creating new ones, his love for the healer, their connection to the mortals around them. It's generating energy patterns that operate outside our established laws in the sanctuary." Celeste felt the shift as Damon's transformation reached a critical threshold. The child in her arms gasped with renewed life, her Arcturian bioluminescence returning in pulses of healthy light. But more than that, every person in the chamber began to glow with their own inner radiance, not cosmic energy imposed from without, but love made manifest from within. Damon, Celeste breathed, reaching for his hand. When their fingers touched, the effect amplified exponentially. The love between them, pure and unconditional, became a template that spread to everyone present. Orion felt the walls he'd built around his heart crumble, replaced by genuine care for the people he'd once seen as subjects to be ruled. Thalia experienced the reunion with her daughter not just as personal joy, but as a recognition that family could extend to encompass all living beings. Even the former Imperial soldiers felt their conditioning dissolve, replaced by an understanding that true strength came from protecting rather than conquering. Now, Chancellor Vex's voice cut through the harmony like a discordant note as his strike force burst into the chamber. Destroy the source, kill them all. The weapons designed to disrupt cosmic energy fired in perfect synchronization, their beams converging on Damon's position. But instead of destroying him, the energy was absorbed and transformed, becoming part of the growing network of love-based power that connected every soul in the sanctuary. Impossible, Vex snarled, his mechanical components sparking as they failed to process what they were witnessing. You're violating the fundamental laws of reality. No, Damon replied, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond the physical. We're transcending them, in the space between worlds. The cosmic entities watch their carefully maintained order begin to unravel. He's teaching them that love is the fundamental force, Serafina said, her ancient certainty cracking like ice in spring. Not power, not law, not even balanced love. And he's proving it works better than everything we've built. The mortals are evolving beyond the need for our oversight, Kronos observed, his temporal awareness showing futures where cosmic entities were remembered only as footnotes in the history of organic transcendence. We must intervene, Cosmos declared, her galaxy form beginning to descend toward the mortal realm, before they make us irrelevant. But entropy, the force of necessary endings, spoke with quiet wisdom. Perhaps irrelevance is not something to be feared. Perhaps it is simply the next stage of existence, the moment when creation outgrows its creators. You would have us fade into nothingness, Serafina demanded. I would have us choose transformation over stagnation, Entropy replied. They are not destroying what we built, they are fulfilling its highest purpose, order maintained through love rather than fear, power used for creation rather than control, balance achieved through connection rather than separation. In the sanctuary, the transformation reached its culmination. Damon and Celeste stood together at the center of a network of light that connected every being present. The dying child played with newfound energy while her parents wept with joy. Former enemies embraced as friends. Even Chancellor Vex's strike force found their weapons transforming into tools of healing, as the love energy rewrote their fundamental purpose. This is just the beginning, Celeste said, her violet eyes reflecting depths of possibility that stretched across galaxies. What we've created here can spread to every world, every star system. An empire of compassion, Orion added, his transformation from imperial heir to healing prince complete, built not through conquest but through choice. A universe where power serves love instead of the other way around, Thalia concluded, finally understanding why she had become the empire's greatest general, not to serve conquest, but to learn how to protect what truly mattered. Damon raised his hand, and with a gesture gentler than a summer breeze, he sent a pulse of love energy racing across the galaxy. On every world it touched, people began to remember what they had forgotten, that they were connected not just by shared origins but by shared capacity for compassion. The Empire's weapons systems began transforming into medical equipment. Warships became vessels of exploration and aid. The fear that had held a galaxy in chains for generations simply dissolved, replaced by the understanding that everyone was part of the same cosmic family. In the space between dimensions, Serafina Void made her choice. Instead of fighting the transformation, she allowed herself to be transformed by it. Her cosmic awareness, her ancient power, Her timeless wisdom all of it she freely gave to serve the new.